Welcome to the A Monday Moment with Dr. Mal podcast, where each week I, Dr. Mal, share life lessons and motivation to kickstart your Monday. Whether you're starting your day or winding down, join me or me and my future guest for a burst of positivity and a fresh perspective. Let's make Mondays meaningful together. Greetings and happy Monday, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Mallory McCoy, and welcome to this week's episode of A Monday Moment with Dr. Mal. As always, may this broadcast bring you what you need in the present moment. May my light exude positivity and kindness, and may my love be extended to all who could use a little extra. Ashe. Let's seize the moment. My gratitude stays on an endless cycle, and this week is no different. I'm incredibly grateful for my angel team that rocks with me, shows me love, gives me encouragement as I move through life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my warm home and space heater because, baby, it's cold here in Kansas City. I'm grateful for my mobility. I know some people live in chronic pain every day, and even though I have a snap, crackle, pop when I wake up in the morning, I'm still moving. And I'm grateful to have fun. I went to a concert this last weekend, Jagged Edge, Genuine, Maya, High Five, and Truth. And we had a real good time. And it was certainly a blast from the past, but it took me a whole day to recover because although the concert did start at 8, it was over at 11:30 and I stood up most of the time and I didn't realize that it would take me a day to recover, but it did. I was tired all day yesterday. So grateful for that. And then I'm grateful this week for self-awareness skills. I've been taking a bigger picture of my life. I tend to have a lot of irons in the fire, as they say, because I like to put myself in a lot of things, but I'm learning that in order to be able to do things well, I need to focus my energy on a couple or a few of those endeavors. And so I'm taking a step back and seeing what's working and what's not, and what would be easy to grow and what's not easy to grow. So I'm excited about it all. Definitely is affirmation that I'm growing in this space. So I'm excited. Okay, before I jump into the rest of the show, you need to know 2 things. First, for as long as I can remember, I have always been interested in people, how they move, how they grow, what skills they learn, and how they choose to live and love. My favorite topic about people is relationships and how people relate. And I can specifically remember in 8th grade, I took a career test. Well, actually, all the 8th graders had to take a career test with our counselor. And the career that was revealed to me as to be the perfect career for me was actually anthropology, which is the study of humans. But I never formally wanted to go that route because it required me to be a scientist, because anthropologists are scientists. And at the time, I was so much in my creative brain that science and social studies was not something I was interested in at all. Now I love it. It's surprising to me that I actually have an affinity for science now, but I didn't at the time. So anyway, obviously I didn't choose anthropology as a life path, or a career path. However, I love to study people. And like I said, my favorite topic is relationships. And if I'm not teaching about something, I am certainly sharing my learning about my own life, because I believe that sharing life experiences and me sharing my life experiences is so valuable. The second thing that you need to know is this is my second time recording this episode. The first time I recorded this episode, the tone of voice that I used and the body language that I had revealed to me that I had some biases and remnants of my people-pleasing personality that I needed to confront before presenting this information authentically. And so this is take 2, and I'm grateful for it because I'm now settled in the information I'm going to present to you. So I say all that to say, this episode is about facts, what I've learned so far, and what questions I still have about what topic I'm presenting to you today. I am not here to shame. I am not here to judge. I am not here to tell people what they should or they shouldn't do, because always do you, boo boo. I am presenting this topic like I present all my other topics, with the intent to learn and teach. And for this episode specifically, ask real questions about what I don't know about in its totality. So today I'm talking about polyamory, what it is, what I know so far from what I've read and content I've consumed, and to ask some lingering questions that I have. I have one big question, and then there's some frill questions after the big question that I have. I will say that apparently in the algorithm that I'm in on social media, it is a hot topic right now. People are starting to openly talk about this relationship structure in the romantic and sexual sense. And in the romantic and sexual sense, if I'm real, people have been doing this kind of thing in relationships for a very long time. There are a lot of skeletons in a lot of people's closets since the dawn of time. The polyamory structure, though, is a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about that. But one song that I can quickly access is Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and that song don't exist for no reason. And the narrative that's told in the lyrics of that song is a narrative for many families, and it's almost like a biography for some. But it's wild because polyamory is also a topic that gets the biggest side eye. So based on what I've learned so far, I've concluded that the side eye comes from ignorance of the definition of the term and its misalignment with societal norms. Although after learning what I've learned about it, I would argue that polyamory is a societal norm with unnecessary controversy. Look, as Glorilla says, let me cook. First things first, let's define some terms so we're all on the same page. A relationship is defined as a connection, association, or involvement of any sort. So any connection, any association, or involvement is a relationship. There are many types of human relationship connections. Connection with self. I just did a podcast last week about the relationship that you have with you with the most important relationship you'll ever have. Facts on facts on facts. We have familial relationship connections. These are the people that are your blood relatives. We have platonic relationship connections. These are people who are closely connected to you, but without the sexual component. We have professional relationship connections. These are connections with colleagues, mentors, and industry professionals. We have acquaintance connections. These are people that aren't so close to you, but you know them, and you know them in certain social contexts. You have romantic connections, which are a combination of strong compatibility and strong desirability. And then sexual connections, and these connections are only based on physical attraction and physical intimacy. The word polyamory literally means multiple loves. It comes from the Greek word poly, which means many, and the Latin word amor, which means love. And fun fact, it's a fairly new word. It was first recorded in 1990. And to give you some context, 1990, I was in kindergarten. So it just was recorded for the first time in history when I was in kindergarten. So the definitions that I've read, polyamory only refers to romantic or sexual relationships. And with every definition I've read so far is about having multiple emotional connections with full transparency and consent. Heavy on the full transparency and consent part. Everybody knows what's happening. There's no secrets. And because the societal stigma is rooted in romantic and sexual relationships, let's traverse down that path a little bit. Because by its mere definition, here's what romantic polyamory is not, and sexual polyamory is not. Polyamory is not the same as ethical non-monogamy. Ethical non-monogamy is an umbrella term for any relationship structure that isn't monogamous. polyamory falls under this category, but so do open relationships, swinging, and relationship anarchy, which I had never heard of relationship anarchy, and I had to look that up. All of which have different expectations and structures. Number 2, polyamory is not the same as polygamy. Polygamy is about marriage. It's when someone has multiple spouses. There's no gender attached to the word polygamy, although the most common polygamist relationship structure is a man with multiple women. That's why it's often used interchangeably, but the term itself does not mean that. The term itself means one person with multiple spouses. And polyamory doesn't require a marriage component at all. It's not religious or a cultural tradition. In the same way, we have polygyny. That specifically is naming a man with multiple wives. And then we have polyandry, and that's specifically naming a woman with multiple husbands. But both of those are still not polyamory because they are often tied to, again, religious or cultural traditions, and polyamory is not. And so I was actually able to find a couple of charts on Google, and that really helped me. I'm a visual learner anyway. It helped me to visualize polyamory in the romantic context. So the first chart, which is right here, is a terminology of polyamory. I won't read this whole thing to you, but as you can see at the top is ethical non-monogamy and then monogamy. Monogamy meaning practice of having one partner at a time. Ethical non-monogamy, there's multiple partners, but the ethical part of it, all parties are aware and consenting. There's the honesty and transparency part. And then we have hierarchical relationships where a certain partnership is prioritized. By nature, monogamy, people practicing monogamy, that's already hierarchical because that relationship is prioritized. And non-hierarchical relationships, there's no partnership that is prioritized. And then you have relationship anarchy, which this is a subset of non-hierarchical polyamory, and it's very autonomous. There's no relationship that is valued over another relationship, regardless of the dynamics, which I haven't researched. That's something that's far off from what I'm even talking about. This chart actually, I've actually seen a chart that's similar to this, but in an educational context. Of course, this is educational too, but I really like that it has the high sexual exclusivity, high emotional exclusivity, and then it goes downhill from there. So we can see where people who are romantically polyamorous lie low emotional exclusivity and low sexual exclusivity. Okay. But there is a form of polyamory called polyfidelity, and where there is high sexual exclusivity and high emotional exclusivity within a small group of people. And so I found that to be interesting. This brings me to the topic of the week, which is polyamory. I have a question, and I have so many questions. I thought I just have one, but I have multiple questions. One of the biggest questions I have is about the definition of polyamory itself. As humans, we have a large capacity to love others, especially when we practice loving ourselves first and we show up complete in any relationship form. But does the term polyamory have to only be exclusive to romantic and sexual relationships? With this question, I'm arguing that other relationship forms can be considered polyamorous and with the same dynamics as romantic and sexual relationships, but not the same. A very basic example of polyamory is when parents have multiple children. Do you choose which child to love and neglect the others? Like, I can only love you. I can't love the rest of them. Absolutely not. Now, there may be ones that you like more than the others, but you show them all love in some capacity, we hope. Another example, and probably a better example, is one person having multiple friends that they love. A friendship is a type of relationship, and if polyamory was not only connected to romantic and sexual relationships, I would say that I am polyamorous in friendship. I have different friend groups that I love, and they function in different ways in my life. My fitness friend group, my educator friend group, my sorors, my close friends I hang out with individually, my childhood friends that I have from high school. Like, I tell them all I love them as I'm getting off the phone with them, and I feel love for them. I feel like that's a multiple love situation, even though they have different roles that they serve in my life. And so, yeah, I don't say, oh, I love this group more than the other group. No, I love them. I love them. Love is love, period. And I love learning about other living arrangements that would also indicate that these are polyamorous situations by definition and not in the romantic and sexual context. For example, there's a wave of single mothers who are choosing to live together and raise their kids in communal households. There's a whole lot of love being shared in this scenario, but the moms don't necessarily have to be in a relationship, but they're choosing to do life together with their children. That seems like polyamory to me. When people marry for the legal benefits of marriage and not for love, we got those green card marriages. We have financial partnerships. We even have military marriages. Those are a thing. And people just get married for the legal benefits of it. There's an element of care in that, at the very least, which is a component of love, but it's not love itself. To agree to marry someone for their benefit, especially because it can be a legal or financial sacrifice for one of the partners in the duo. But that's still polyamory. I'm marrying you so you can have insurance, but I'm choosing to conduct my life romantically with someone else. That's happening. There are some couples who are agreeing to have an open marriage to fulfill certain needs while keeping their family structure intact. In fact, one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, one of the members shared an anecdote about her partner being socially monogamous with his other partner, because she is monogamous and the other partner is monogamous, but between them, they have a polyamorous partner. And I'd never heard that term before, socially monogamous, but it's true. There's couples that are conducting themselves as a family in social situations, but privately they are choosing to have relationships with other people. And with honesty and consent, this sounds like it could be the best relationship scenario, because without the honesty and consent, it's cheating. And if you've ever experienced that in any type of form, that doesn't feel good. I know that everybody has a story about a family member having multiple kids and to multiple partners. And these scenarios, it could be considered polyamorous if there was honesty and transparency, but that's not always the case in these scenarios. And in turn, there's deception and hurt feelings happening in these scenarios. And I can think of multiple examples of this. And I don't think I'd be overreaching or making an assumption when I say that nobody wants to be a part of this scenario. There are many relationship groups that I'm part of on social media, like I just alluded to, and I know that's true. I know and see the hurt that people are experiencing in real time when they're part of a scenario like this. And no one wants to be hurt or feel deceived because someone they made a commitment to in any way didn't present themselves honestly and transparent. Some of my favorite content to consume right now that I would consider polyamory is video and anecdotes of healthy co-parenting and blended families making it work between them. There's so much love in these scenarios because children that were the result of the romantic and sexual relationships that they didn't initiate are centered. And I think I'm most drawn to them actually because I wish I would have had this example or that type of example with the adults that were in my life at the time and weren't able to demonstrate the level of love that I'm witnessing in these particular scenarios. And there's a whole nother thing about partnerships that are coming together that are completely platonic all around the world. Some people are choosing to commit to their best friend instead of a spouse and build a life together. And actually, not only have I read this happening around the world, but I also know a real life example of this in my extended social circle. And so I can do this scenario too. And this feels like polyamory because there's love happening between them enough to say, hey, like, we don't have to be romantically or sexually connected, but I want to spend my life with you. I want to do life with you. And that's beautiful. I say all this to say the question that presses me about polyamory, by its very definition, multiple loves, and thinking about the examples that I just spoke about, aren't we all polyamorous in nature? If so, then why is using the term exclusive to romantic and sexual relationships? And why is it when we use the term polyamory to refer to a romantic or sexual relationship, why does it carry the societal stigma it does? I guess, again, that was more than one question. And I also have some follow-up questions to the initial question I posed. Why is it so difficult to show up as our true selves in the relationship? Or why is it so difficult to be honest and transparent to someone we choose to extend love toward? And hey, I'm posting these questions. You can feel free to chime in at any time. My call to action for you this week is to reflect on your thoughts about relationship forms, whether romantic or platonic. And of course, I have some more questions, but these questions are actually for you to reflect on to better understand yourself and the relationships you choose to cultivate. So this week, ask yourself, what do I actually believe about love and relationships, like you yourself? Are those beliefs mine, or were they handed down to me by society, family, or tradition? Number 2, am I making intentional choices in my relationships, or am I following a script I never questioned? A moment of silence, because a lot of us are following a script that we never questioned. Number 3, what does commitment mean to me? Is it about exclusivity? Is it about transparency? Is it about time or something else? Like, what does it mean? Let me back it up like a Tonka truck, because marriage is a commitment, but there are some assumptions made in that commitment structure that you should not make. You should actually talk it out with your partner and say, okay, so now we are choosing to marry each other. What does this mean? Don't make assumptions. Number 4, when I think about polyamory or any non-traditional relationship structure, what emotions come up? And this is why this episode was recorded twice, because I had to confront some stuff for myself. Is it curiosity? Is it judgment? Is it fear? Why? Pick me. When I first recorded this, I think the tone that I was using and the body language that I was having was rooted in fear a little bit and rooted in judgment a little bit. But that is not energy that I was holding, obviously, because I planned a whole podcast to talk about my questions about polyamory, but it was a fear of judgment that I was holding for society at large, which I was like, I gotta let it go. Gotta let that go. Number 5, how do I define love? Do I see love as something scarce that must be protected, or abundant and meant to be shared? So, probably the root question of that reflection is not only how do you define love, what is love for yourself? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that smell like? What does that smell like? Don't throw it off, because if something's smelling good in the kitchen and somebody's cooking for you, that does feel like love sometimes. And then the last reflection question, do you live in alignment with whatever works for you? When we're clear about what works for us and aligns with us, and we're intentional about sharing who we are with the ones we choose to share our love with, that's a whole flex, period. And so to wrap up today's episode, I'm going to leave you with a quote and a list of affirmations, as I always do. The quote is unknown. We don't know who said it, but love is infinite. It does not diminish when shared. It only expands. I've heard moms talk about this a lot, is when they have one child and then they have another child and they're like, I didn't know I could feel this much love. Yeah, it just expands. And then 10 affirmations for authentic relationships. I define love on my own terms. I am worthy of honest and fulfilling relationships. I honor my needs and my boundaries. I attract people who align with my values. My relationships are rooted in trust and mutual respect. I am free to explore what love means to me. I release judgment about my own and others' relationships. That's not your business. I communicate my desires with clarity and confidence. I allow love to show up in my life in all forms, and I embrace love in ways that feel right for me. I love that. Well, that's all for me this week. That was a good show. I hope that you were able to learn something. I hope that you will engage and answer my questions and give me your take on what you think about this particular proposal that I have, that we societally shift from thinking of polyamory in the context of only romantic and sexual relationships and expanding our thought process about that, because love is love and we got love to share to a lot of people. So I'm forever honored that you tune in. Next week's show, I'm going back to basics. It's going to be a little bit different. My Finer Sorors asked me to be a part of their Monday motivational event for Finer Womanhood Week. And there is no way that I could say no, because Mondays are my favorites and I do love to motivate others. This is why I do what I do. So next week, catch me live on my YouTube channel, my Facebook profile, and my LinkedIn profile, Dr. Mallory D. McCoy, and at When Mallory Lives, live at 7:20 on Monday, February 24th. So until then, love and peace to all of you. Have the best week. Thank you for tuning in for a Monday Moment with Dr. Mal, now proudly a part of the Alive Podcast Network. You can find this show on the Live Podcast Network website and app, and you can find this podcast streaming across your favorite podcast streaming platforms. If you love to have the visual, you can tune into my YouTube channel, When Mallory Lives, to see this show and catch up on all my shows from the beginning.